Chapter 40. Hope sat on the bench with a smile. His teammates all clattered around him, attempting to give high fives while slapping him on the shoulder. He knew that he couldn't be completely removed from the players that also wore the Old English B on their chests, and yet he was as removed from them as a young baby is from a Zen master, Christian sage, or Muslim holy man. He took their congratulatory swipes and smiles and words all in stride. He had to be part of their saga, even though he was, even at this moment, bringing them closer toward his own. The Bengals took their turn at the plate and scored 2 runs on 4 hits. The crowd was sure that today, anyway, would be a successful outing at the ballpark. Now it was time for Hope to stroll back to the mound. When he reached the center of the diamond, the home plate umpire was there waiting for him. "Hey, Pitch," he asked, "what's the secret? I've been umping for 25 years and I've never seen the kind of heat you threw last inning." Hope's eyes scanned the umpire's face momentarily. Then he answered, "For 25 seasons, you've watched others play this game. As a young child, weren't your dreams about playing ball instead of enforcing the rules?" Sure, yeah, but maybe. Then I promise you this. If you call a fair game and watch very closely, very soon you'll understand the answer to your question," said Hope mystically. The umpire grunted something incoherent and trotted back home. Hope stood on the top of the mound and looked around at the green grass and the blue sky. He then swung his gaze toward the stands and watched all the fans watching him. The batter was ready in the batter's box, and Hope zipped his first pitch by him so fast that he didn't even bother swinging. Hope's next pitch was as invisible as his first, and the batter stood there shaking his head while wearing an already defeated smile. After striking him out, Hope flashed a peace sign at him, and the batter kind of chuckled as he clomped back to the visitor's dugout. Hope set down the side with 9 straight pitches. Only once did a batter even try to swing at one, but he whiffed. Jogging back to the dugout, he caught Galligan's lens, trained intently on him, and flashed her the peace sign too. Galligan didn't realize it, but she'd just snapped the front page photo of the next day's Daily News. Page A1 would be completely taken up by a picture of Hope holding up a V for victory sign. No one would understand that it was really a peace sign, but Hope would be okay with that. For now. Chapter 41. To a tired northern industrial town that's just weathered another winter of discontent, opening day is an unofficial holiday, which begs summer to hurry into its cold, creaky crevices and possibly pretend to stick around and snuggle for a while. Everyone in the ballpark knew that they'd have to deal with snow and slush and gray again, but for the next several months they could forget the dreariness and enjoy the possibilities that spring promised, although rarely kept. Every inning was much like the first 2. The leadoff batter in the 8th inning got to the plate and was about ready for the pitch when the ump called a timeout. Apparently, the opposing team's cleanup batter was so frustrated with not being able to touch anything Hope threw that he had rushed back to the clubhouse and fetched a bulky, ornate mahogany leg off the conference room table. The Jumbozon screen was zoomed in on his bat, and it was there, on the screen in center field, that the ump first noticed what was right in front of his face. "I wasn't getting any wood on his other pitchers, so I thought I'd give this a try," the batter said to the ump. After the umpire pointed out that neither the leg nor the 2 long silver bolts sticking out of it were anywhere near pro baseball approved, the slugger exchanged it with a bat boy, stepped back into the box only to whiff like he did the other 2 times up. Chapter 42. By the end of the game, 3 Bengals had crossed the plate, one doing so twice. 4-0 was the final score, but it wasn't an opening day shutout that made history. It wasn't even a perfect game that made the outing a first for the record books. The simple fact that no batter even touched the ball was what sportscasters, columnists, fans, and grandmothers would be talking about. Nary a foul ball or a weak pop-up to the infield marred Hope's gem. 81 pitches, each one of them a strike whether the batter swung or not, was all Hope needed. Chapter 43. As Hope's last pitch crossed the plate unassailed and the Rosa Parks crowd exploded in hysteria, Mike Fidrich calmly turned to Rob Lanier and said, "Mr. Mayor, Could you set up a press conference tomorrow at 12 o'clock? Lanier, a former basketball great who a few years earlier decided to give back to his hometown by running for mayor when nobody else wanted the job, turned to Fidrich in the executive suite and asked, "You plan on naming a street after your boy?" The owner took one last sip of his Diet Verner's and hosted himself out of his genuine cowhide hide chair. "No, sir, but by the end of the season you may be rethinking your self-imposed term limit." Ambling with a waddle towards the suite's exit, he politely opened the door and shook the mayor's hand with one of those perfunctory grips that simultaneously pulls the receiver away from you. "High noon?" the mayor asked. "High noon." Sixth inning, Chapter 44. Even though his performance was all over the news, during the post-game interviews, Hope was nowhere to be found. The two people that brought hope to the Bengals, Fidrich and Palmer, were strangely happy to answer questions for the mysterious pitcher. His absence made the press ponder. Who was this pitching ace who faced the minimum number of batters? Why hadn't they seen him in spring training? To questions about who he was, where he came from, and, more importantly, where was he now, Palmer's curious smile was met with even more probing questions. Fidrich didn't seem to help matters when he was asked about Hope's contract, and he responded by patting his belly and said, "It's actually pretty easy to swallow." Chapter 45. Graphic artist Marty Westman was about a beer past even thinking about driving home. He only lived about a lurch, a veer, and a stumble away anyway. Ever since he was named the unluckiest man in journalism, having been laid off from not one but two newspapers in less than a half a year, his luck had been hit, but mostly miss. Sitting at his favorite stool at Royal Oak's The Inn Place, he vaguely explained his history to a buddy who'd heard it twice before. "So, after getting laid off from the Daily News, I thought I'd hit a home run when those rich bastards started up a brand new newspaper right here in Royal Oak." Marty's buddy looked down at his phone, then at the TV, followed by the menu he'd memorized years earlier, and only after that did his gaze shift back up at Marty. Yeah. Then that newspaper folded after a week, and the owners skipped town. Yeah, I remember, you stupid drunk. Marty worked hard at trying to focus an angry stare at his drinking companion, but he just didn't care enough to shift his buzz into anger mode. Besides, Marty was known as one of the nicest guys in his gang of recovering journalists, and he really found it difficult to get mad anyway. Looking up at the pictures on the wall from a fundraiser he'd orchestrated for another ex-journo who had been stricken with leukemia, Westman's thoughts clouded over until he couldn't remember why he was supposed to be mad in the first place. At that fundraiser, he'd reconnected with a former coworker who worked in the Detroit Bengals organization. From time to time, Marty would get a call to take up some minor bit of Photoshop or InDesign work for the team. No ball club needed a full-time graphic artist on staff, but when work came in, it paid pretty well and supplemented his unemployment checks. There were times, too, when he found himself helping the team in other secret ways, but those were smelly, nasty, and sometimes humiliating times. Marty's flip phone started vibrating, and assuming it was his ex-wife saying she was about to tear him another orifice somewhere south of the Mason-Dixon line, he didn't answer it. 30 seconds later, the vibrating started anew, and grabbing it in a haze, he opened it upside down. "Yeah?" he said by way of an answer into the earpiece. "I can't hear you. Speak up." Reaching over the table, Marty's buddy extricated the phone with a motion that belied his own inebriated state, rotated 180 degrees, and handed it back. "A what?" "No, man, really?" Grabbing for a napkin, he made a motion for his barmate to hand him a pen. "How big? No, I mean how big?" "Yeah, numbers, not size." "Huh," he said, after slapping the phone shut. "That's weird." Sobering up quicker than he had ever remembered, he folded the napkin, pretended to go for his wallet to pay the bill so his drinking buddy would see him make an attempt before being waved off, then started weaving home. But not before his companion read something strange, upside down and spattered with mustard. 1,000,000, 40 by 20, mounted by 11. "That is weird," he said aloud to no one. He went up to pay the bill, only to find Marty had outsmarted him again by already paying and generously tipping Anna, the pretty Scandinavian barkeep. "Better luck next time. Marty's a smarty," she said for the umpteenth time in her delicious accent.